Welcome to the Pitwall Panic Podcast. And today we will be having some fun with you on this glorious Sunday. We will be talking basically the main topic will be we're gonna be talking about the news a little bit, and then we'll also talk about uh what F1 teams would be what restaurants if they were restaurants. So now keep in mind all this will be based off of restaurants in my area. So that would be like uh, around Atlanta and stuff. That's the nearest major city to me. So that's where all my stuff will be based off of. But before we get into that, thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. If you're watching on Twitch, please hit the follow button. If you're seeing this clip, or if you're finding the clip through TikTok, please give us a follow on TikTok, give us a follow on Twitter. If you're finding us from YouTube Shorts, give us a subscribe that way. Any and all support is much welcomed and much loved. You can also go to Discord and join the community. If you're on Twitch, it should be linked on the Twitch page on the home channel. And if you go to YouTube, it is linked there. If you're watching the YouTube video, I will try to remember to link it in the description below. So, great times coming, fun time tonight, many plans coming. That being said, let's get into some of this news first that's gone on this week. Let's see where we want to start out. 1 second, guys. The first thing I guess we could talk about. I'm torn. I got like 5 different things to talk about. Oh man, sorry guys. Congestion is getting to me trying to breathe. I guess we'll start with let's talk about Alpine having to address fans claiming sabotage. I think this is a major problem in F1 today. And the reason it's a major problem is I feel like this started with McLaren last season. And here's the problem. So Oscar started off, just killing it last season. Had a great season going. And then whenever he fell off, I mean, it was the back half of the season. It was the tracks that he struggled with. All the Oscar fans instantly went to, oh, they're sabotaging the car. Oh, they're sabotaging the car. They failed to look at the previous season and see that these are the tracks he struggled with most. Now, could McLaren have, not given him upgrades or something? Yes, that's possible. Is it likely? Probably not, because nobody in their right mind is going to do that, because here's the issue. If you sabotage a driver, is that driver going to stay when the contract comes up if they have an option to leave? No. No team in the right mind is going to sabotage their driver, especially a good driver, because then you risk losing them. So nobody is sabotaging anybody. Nobody in their right mind does that. But because we've set that precedent already, now it's the thing to do. Oh, my driver's not doing good. They must be getting sabotaged. No. Let's use some common sense, guys. That's not what's happening here. Just because your favorite driver is having issues does not mean that somebody's out to get them. That's not how the sport works. I think it is ludicrous that we're having to have this conversation in the first place. But then again, these are also the same fans that are sending death threats when stuff goes sideways. And let's just face it, that is childish and immature and just mind-blowing that we go to that extreme. So, I'm not going to necessarily read off Alpine's, how should I put this? I guess letter. The way that they addressed it, it was like 11 pages, I think. Now, if you haven't seen it yet, if you haven't heard about it, go check it out. You can Google it and find it. It's not hard to find. But it's sad that they're having to go to that degree and saying, we're not sabotaging our drivers. That should be just self-explanatory. And if you're questioning why is Pierre Gasly that much further ahead, Pierre Gasly has carried that team since he's been there. Let that sink in for a second. He has carried that team. Colapinto went to Williams, filled in for Logan Sargent for half a season, did okay there, but couldn't really beat Albon. To me, Gasly's a better driver than Albon, and you expect Franco Colapinto to be keeping up with him. So if he couldn't beat Albon, how is he going to beat Pierre Gasly when Gasly was better? It doesn't make sense. Not logical. Not going to happen. And that's just the facts, and people don't like that. So the next thing I had on this list, and I'm going to try to get through the news a little bit quicker, just so we have the time to go through the main topic of today, because I feel like it's going to be a fun one. It's going to be an interesting one. We have Pitwall Panic now as a co-host. He wasn't able to make it tonight, though, unfortunately. I feel like this would have been really funny to be bouncing back and forth on. But it's all good. Easter Sunday, I kind of figured it might be a little difficult for him to get on. No big deal, though. So, rumors are spreading like wildfire. Rumor is that Yuki could be going to Haas in 2027. Now, there is another rumor going around, and that rumor is that Yuki will replace Max if Max decides to retire. Now, if we had to break down these two rumors and go, which one's more likely, I think it's Yuki going to Haas. And here's my reasoning. How many drivers do you see get a chance at Red Bull's, second seat or any seat, not cut it, get kicked out, and then go back to Red Bull? It doesn't happen. So the odds of him going back to Red Bull, I think, are very small. I think the odds would be better that, like, Lindblad, if he continues the way he is, going up to fill in for Max, and then pulling Yuki in VCARB. But that's also, I think, very unlikely. So I think more than likely, if either one of these rumors are true, it would be Yuki going to Haas. Now, who would he replace at Haas? You already know who I think. Esteban Ocon's gone. Now, if this is the case, if the goal is to replace Esteban Ocon in 2027 with Yuki, then that means he has at least the whole season to try to say, hey, I deserve the seat, instead of just trying to make it to the mid-season break. Because obviously Yuki's contract won't be up with Red Bull until the end of 2026. That being said, I know people are saying, well, it doesn't make sense for Yuki to go to Haas because Toyota's there. And he's backed by Honda. So why would he go to another Japanese company with Toyota, and why would Honda let that happen? Don't forget, last year, Honda came out and said, we are no longer going to push teams to take Japanese drivers. We'll continue to financially back drivers like Yuki Tsunoda and Iwasa, but we will not push teams to take them. Meaning, they're not going to push Aston Martin to take Iwasa or Tsunoda. What that also means is they're not holding their hand on what teams they can go to. So, what that means is if Yuki wants to go to Haas, Honda's not going to block them, logically speaking. Now, could they? Obviously, anything could happen. But based off of that, I see them being okay with him going to Haas and continuing to further his career. And then maybe, just maybe, when Fernando Alonso retires, they go see what he's doing at Haas, bring him over here. That is possible. That is a possibility. Now, that is a very unlikely possibility, I think, but it is one. And the reason it's unlikely is because Honda said that they're not going to try to do that with drivers anymore. But also, if you're not going to help them like that, you can't really hold them to, you have to be with us instead of Toyota. I don't see how you can do both. And that's why I think him going to Haas is more realistic. Now, the FIA has come together and talked about the stuff that happened with Behrman. I want to say there's 11 changes they want to do, and a lot of it deals with the battery. This season, they are dealing with the way the battery harvests and the way it deploys. along with the recharge rate and everything just surrounding the battery in that regards. I urge you to go look it up. I don't have it in front of me. I meant to type it into my show notes and just didn't get the opportunity to because Easter weekend. A lot of crazy stuff going on. My son also had his birthday, so just a lot of crazy stuff happening this weekend. Didn't have the chance to get that part done like I wanted to. But go look it up. There's I want to say 11 points. It might only be 6 points. Those two numbers are sticking in my head for some reason. And I want to say it's next season we may be seeing. Do not quote me. Do not hold me to this because I'm trying to remember this from memory. I want to say next season we could see a change in the amount of electric power. Um, I've seen that the FIA recognizes it was a mistake to go to 50-50. So there's a good chance that they're going to back out of this 50 and go to an even less split. What I would like to see, and if you watch the TikToks, you've already seen me say this, and if you manage to see our comments anywhere, you've seen me say this. I would love to see F1 go to a 75-25 split before anybody says, well, that's what they were last year. No, they were 70-30 split last year. So this would be even more combustion engine. It's only 5% more, but nonetheless, 5% more combustion, 5% less electric than last year. And that's only if they're like, we got to have electric. If we were to go to completely sustainable fuels, I would love to see throw a V10 or a V12 on this car and let them rip. But I know that's not going to happen. And F1 Paradise, that would happen, but that's not going to happen. They're trying to go too much into energy to completely go to combustion. And I think that's what all the F1 fans want. And I think even the drivers would prefer that. It's just not going to happen. Now, the big question mark, and this really isn't, this is news, but it's not news. Max has been ridiculing the regulations. I have no problem with that personally. And the reason I have no problem with that is because he's been asked questions and he's answering the questions. What do you expect him to do? Lie? That's not cool either. So just, don't hate the messenger for giving you an answer when you ask him a question. That is not my problem. My problem is every 2 seconds, when things don't go his way, oh, I'm going to retire. Then do it. Get over it and do it then. Quit bluffing, quit trying to scare people, quit doing all this crap, and just do it. If it's that big of a deal, just do it. And my question is, how long does Red Bull sit here and deal with this crap before they go, okay, Max isn't worth the drama? Yes, he's a great driver. Yes, we have a bad car right now. Yes, he is great to keep. But is it still worth the drama? Is it worth him being in the paddock, causing all these problems, in the garage, causing all these problems, causing all these distractions, when you need to be focused on this car? When you need to be focused, we need to get more points. He is taking focus away from where they need to be at because their PR team is over here trying to put out his fires and trying to say, no, he's not retiring. Because that's what Red Bull's so worried about right now, because that's what they're hearing so much about. You can't focus on fixing what's wrong when you're split like this. It is a huge issue, and at what point does Red Bull say, all right, you know what? You do you. We're going to focus on the car. If you leave, you leave. If you stay, you stay. Great either way, because I'm tired of dealing with it. At what point does Red Bull just have enough? Their hands are already full with this car as it is. I don't know. Martin Brundle came out and said that either he should retire or just stop talking about it. Retire or just move on. Now, if he is genuinely not enjoying the sport anymore and wants to retire, I'm not going to hate on him for it. Not going to have a problem with that. My problem is every single time it doesn't go his way, he throws that around because he knows what his name means to F1 right now, and he thinks that pool is going to get what he wants done. Quit bluffing. Do it or don't do it. I don't care either way. Would I like to watch Max keep racing? Yes. But is it If it means that I have to listen every 2 days, him saying, "Oh, I'm going to retire," then just leave. Don't care. And that goes for any driver for that matter. You got, and here's the crazy part: you have the 4-time champion and Max Verstappen over here. Car's not great. He's having issues. First time he's really ran into adversity while being at Red Bull since he started taking, these big swings at titles. Oh, I'm going to retire because it's not going my way. Then over here on the other side, we have a Fernando Alonso who's already retired once, came back, has the worst car on the grid, a car that can't finish a race. And he's saying, I don't want to retire in a slow car. I'm going to come back next year, basically. He just had a kid, just like Max, is in the worst car on the grid, only has one title to his name. It's not like Max, who's a 4-time champion, but he is still a world title champion, a world driver's champion. And he's saying, I'm going to come back because I want a better shot with a better car. Max doesn't look that far ahead. He looks at right now, this is too hard and it's not going my way. Boo-hoo. Cry me a river. Can't be on top your entire career. That's not how the sport works. You can try. You can certainly try. Even Lewis Hamilton, who is, I'm going to say, the best driver to ever do it. He has the most wins. He has the most podiums. He has the most points. He's tied for the most championships ever. Even he had a down era. Did Lewis cry the entire ground effect era? No. How many wins did he have in the ground effect era? 2. How many championships did he have? 0. How many constructor titles did he have? 0. Did we see him crying like Max, saying, I'm going to retire every 2 days because it wasn't going his way? No. We get out of the ground effect era, and where's he at now? Max needs to get over himself. Plain and simple. He's nowhere near Lewis's level. At least not right now, not statistically. Is he a phenomenal driver? Yes. Do people love watching him? Yes. So what? Lewis had more leg to stand on to cry and complain about the ground effect era, and he didn't. That's just my whole thing, is like, it just sets this weird precedent, and everybody's just kind of getting tired of listening to him cry and complain. At some point, you got to man up and drive or retire, one of the two. Either way is fine. Just pick one. That's my soapbox for the night. We're going to get into the fun stuff now. So, fun stuff is if these teams, if the 11 teams we had were restaurants, what restaurants would they be and why? I think this is going to be absolutely phenomenal. It's probably going to be funny. It might upset some people. And if that's the case, please don't be sensitive, because this is all fun and games and jokes. Just throwing that out there now. And you might get a good laugh out of this. If you're not from the US, you might have to look some of this stuff up. I'm sure some of it is overseas in Europe as well, but it might be a little different. So, hopefully, you get the joke. If not, I am sorry, and I will try to do my best to explain it when I do these explanations. So, first up on the chopping block, we got Aston Martin. This one was just too easy for me to pick, so that's why it's going first. And now, keep in mind, when I did these, I spent probably 3 hours, 4 hours trying to figure out how to place these restaurants with these teams, because this was a lot harder than I expected, but it was still fun. And so I hope y'all have fun with this also. So, first up, like I said, is Aston Martin. I went with McDonald's. In this area, McDonald's is absolute garbage. They take forever and they suck. The note that I put with it is McDonald's takes forever. When you finally get your food, it's still wrong. Now let's think about Aston Martin for a second. Aston Martin, pretty much everyone was super excited when Adrian Newey left and went to Aston Martin. Obviously, he was there in 25, but he was only working on the 26 car, not the 25 car. So we didn't really see Newey make any adjustments and make any impact on the 25 car. And everybody said, oh, the 26 car is going to be great because it's going to be Newey's car. And then, after we waited a whole year, might have been like a year and a half, We waited all this time, expecting big changes. Finally, see a car from Aston Martin that was taking a fight to the top four. They can't keep the car on the track because it keeps breaking down. So we waited all this time to get the wrong thing. They can't even compete in this regulation. It's kind of funny to actually think about how accurate and how close this is together. So we got Aston Martin with McDonald's. Number 2, we got Cadillac as Panera Bread. And this one might be one of those that people don't get or get offended by or whatever because you like Panera Bread and being tied to a bad team. A lot of people love Panera Bread, but to me, my personal opinion is they're not worth it. The food they don't give you enough food. Is it just me? They don't give you enough food, but they charge you like the same prices as like the nicer restaurants that give you more food. So it kind of feels like a scam in my opinion. That's why I don't really eat Panera. Plus, to me, the food's just not that great. I know a lot of people would disagree with me on that. My wife is one of those. I can't get behind Panera Bread like that. And the way I tie this in with Cadillac is right now, Cadillac is the new team on the grid with Audi. And so mediocrity is kind of expected with them because they're still trying to get their feet under them. They're trying to figure it out. I know they have Andretti backing them and working with them, but still they're still new to F1. And it's been a long time since Andretti was in F1. So while he's still he is Andretti and he still knows motorsport, it's not like he just hopped out of the car and started doing this, so he knows how they need to do things. So mediocrity is kind of expected. No one comes into F1 and just right off the rip is fighting for a top 4 spot. Audi is doing phenomenal for what people expected, and I mean they've only got 2 points. So that being said, they had a ton of support backing them. They have a huge fan base because F1 is growing substantially in the US. So having another US team on the grid is getting them a lot of backing, getting them a lot of support. But they just aren't great. They're not knocking down these doors at this very moment. It's possible that it changes over time. And I believe at some point it will. It just might take a few years. And it just it's one of those things. This team is going to ebb and flow as they're getting their feet under them. We'll see them peak. We'll see them probably do something that they think is good and it backfire because that's part of the growing process is figuring out what works and what doesn't. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But that's just kind of my prediction is that they'll get better. It's just right now they are at that Panera level where everybody loves to support Cadillac because everybody loves to support Panera, but the food just ain't that great right now. The next 2 up are going to be Red Bull and VCARB, and I feel like this is going to be very funny thinking about it. Just how drastically different the Red Bull and the VCARB are, even though the VCARB should be the bad one of the 2 of them since it's a junior team. They're kind of arguably the better team of the 2 right now. For Red Bull, we got Cracker Barrel. And this is the caveat that I'm going to start with. The ones around me, I know there's still some really good Cracker Barrels out there. I know people still love Cracker Barrel. We still eat it every now and then, not as much as we used to. But the one here near me, it used to be really good, and it used to be like the family favorite. We probably went once a month, if not twice a month. And it just really went downhill and fell off. So we haven't been to Cracker Barrel nearly as much as we used to because the food is very hit or miss. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. Same thing with the service. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. It's a real roll of the dice, and when you're hungry, you don't really want to roll the dice most of the time. So, they've just fallen off drastically. Now let's look at Red Bull. For a minimum the last 5 years, they've been one of the top teams. Like, they've been at the top of the chain. And they always have at least one driver in the fight for the drivers. They may not be in the fight for the constructors, like last season, for example. They were nowhere near the fight for constructors. Nobody really was. But Max was in the fight for the title for driver. I think it was 23 was the last time they won a constructor title. And then they were iffy in 24. Then they cut Perez. Or that might have been 25. I'd have to go back and look at exact dates. I might be getting my years mixed up here. It's been a minute since they were in the fight for a constructor title. It's been 2 or 3 years. So, but they always had a driver there in the mix for the driver's title. Now let's look at them this season. The best finish Max has is 6th place. Let that sink in. We're 3 races in, 4 races if you count the sprint, and his best finish is 6th place. Now let me double check this. Let me double check something real quick, because I want to make sure that he didn't finish better than that in the sprint. So driver standings, races, open up races. Come on. China, I know he DNF'd at race. What did he do? Sprint race. In the sprint race, he took 9th place. So the best he's had all season is 6th place. Then he's had a DNF, a 9th place, and then I think he took 8th in Japan. Let me double check that also. I don't want to tell you wrong. I try to be extremely credible because, you know, what are you without your credibility? So races, Japan. Yeah, he was 8th place in Japan. So this guy that's always in the fight for the title, at one of his best tracks, I mean, you think about last season and how bad that car was going into Japan, and he won the race. Literally nobody had him picked to win Japan because of how bad that Red Bull was, and he still won. And this season, the best he could do was 8th. Red Bull has fallen off a cliff. They haven't just taken a step back or a decline like McLaren has. McLaren took a step back, and I expected it. And in my opinion, if you're not blinded by being a McLaren fan, everybody saw that coming. Everybody expected it to be Mercedes and Ferrari at the top, and then McLaren was going to have that step back. But Ferrari took a dive off the high dive and is sinking slowly to the back of the field. And at this point, the only teams I don't think are going to beat Red Bull are Williams, Audi, Cadillac, and Aston Martin. And who knows, if Aston Martin can get this thing fixed and Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso really takes off, who knows? Maybe they could take a fight to Red Bull because they just look pitiful right now. And right now they're in 6th place as a constructor with the junior team nipping at their heels. You can't tell me that this is not embarrassing for Red Bull. Did you go from fighting the way they have the past 5 years to struggling to stay ahead of the junior program? That's pitiful. And that's just where we are. I mean, it happens. There's cycles. Ferrari's had this cycle before. But it is bad this season. So that's why I put them on Cracker Barrel. They're on that decline. They've fallen off. Could they come back next year? It's possible. Could they come back in a couple of years? It's possible. Most of these major teams don't stay down long. It's just the way it works. They got to figure out the new regulations, so they won't stay down long. But as of right now, they are definitely a Cracker Barrel. Now, VCARB, I put them as Crystals. You're not going to Crystal because you want 5-star food. You're not going to Crystal because you want the best fast food. Are they on the better side? Yeah. They're kind of like the middle ground of fast food, in my opinion. I like me a good Crystals every now and then. Um, they're not the worst. They're not the best, but you know what you're gonna get pretty much every time you go to Crystal. You're not gonna be disappointed because you know what to expect. B Carb is doing just that. They're definitely nothing special. They're not fighting for that top 4 spot with Alpine and Haas. And you know, if McLaren continues the reliability issues and Haas continues to be a top-notch, consistent team the way Behrman's been carrying them, they could be even fighting higher than that. And I'll kind of get into that more in a little bit with my analogy for them. But you know, so they're not special in that regards. You know, many people expected them to be in that 5th, 6th, 7th spot somewhere in there, and that's where they are. I think that B Carb is looking way stronger than they should because they're nipping at Red Bull's heels, and I think that clouds people's view of them because they are so close to Red Bull. But at the end of the day, they're where everybody expected them to be at. They're no to higher, no lower, really. So they're kind of that Crystals. You know what to expect, and that's what you're getting. Right now they're in 7th place. They could end up in 6th place the next race. Who knows? Now this is the one that kind of hurt me because I expected so much in 25 out of this team, and then they just have not delivered in 26, at least not yet. And the deeper the hole gets, the harder it's going to be for them to get out of it and to get their way up in the constructor standings. And that is Williams. If I had to put Williams as a restaurant, it's going to be Applebee's. Now, I know there's some really nice Applebee's in the country. So again, this is based off the one here where I am at. They're, on the outside and on the inside when you walk in, it looks like it's going to be real nice, or at least nicer than, McDonald's, Burger, Chick-fil-A, stuff like that. It looks like it's a nice little sit-down restaurant. It's not a 5-star, but again, it's not fast food either. Then you get your food, and it's mediocre at best. Sometimes it's cold. It's not always the best stuff ever. Then you also get the check, and when you get the check, it's like, this is fancy restaurant food, and it's not. Just that's what the price reflects. And they are very much so not a great restaurant around here. So, how does this compare to Williams? Well, all throughout 25. We're not working on this 25 chassis. It's the same chassis from 24 with a few tweaks here and there. We're focusing on the 26 car. We're focusing solely on the 2026 car. And then the season comes around and they miss Barcelona because the car's not ready yet. At least they don't feel prepared to put it on track around other cars yet. Then we see Bahrain, and they are super slow and sluggish. Then it comes out that 28 kilograms overweight. It's just slowly getting worse and worse. The car only has 2 points, and keep in mind, Carlos Sainz has 2 points. And you might go, okay, well, they are a midfield team. Midfield teams don't always get points. Well, look at Haas. They've got, I think 18 points right now. 17 points right now. And they basically had one driver doing all the work. You look at Alpine. Pierre Gasly's carrying them. Franco Colapinto's got some points too, but, it's not exactly like they're just not meeting the points. You look at how many DNFs and DNSs we've had in the first 3 races. It's like half the grid's fallen out of these races, basically. I think we're having between 6 and 8 cars not start or finish races. and you can't get points, that's a problem. Like, you expect this out of Audi and Cadillac because they're new. And when you see all the problems that Aston Martin's having, you expect it out of them. Granted, it still sucks because everybody wanted to see such a good car come out of Newey. But everybody had been hyping up all of 25, the fact that Williams was going to be strong in 26 because we're not doing anything at 25. And this car sucks. There's no way to put around it. Carlos Sainz put it on the podium a couple times last season. Currently, that's not happening. There's no way that's happening. And so you got this nice wrapped up car and all these expectations to get a turd, to get absolutely nothing, and with no answer on how to make it better. So that's why they get put with Applebee's. Now Audi I put as a Longhorn Steakhouse. Kind of the trying to think of how to put this. They're not super fancy, but it's a nice sit down restaurant. It's not I gotta wear a suit and tie to go in here. I can wear me, some jeans and a t-shirt, look nice and presentable, and still, get me a good steak. Not overly expensive. Nothing super cheap anymore, but not overly expensive compared to everybody else. And that's kind of, what Audi is. They're a new team. No one expects them to just sit here and rocket ship away. They've got some points on the season, which is better than some expected. And surprisingly, they go out and put the car in positions that nobody expected them to be in. So you get you that nice steak, and they're facing some difficulties with Wheatley leaving, but they're not letting that cloud them. They're not letting them let that stop them, cause any issues. So I mean, I feel like they're a good comparison to a Longhorn because they're no 5-star restaurant by no means, but they're a good little place to go to and get you a bite to eat, get you a good steak. Now Alpine was difficult because I think too many people are blinded by last year's results and forget that Alpine is not as bad overall as they were in 2025 when you look at from the time they stepped foot on the grid. And I know people are going to go, well, they finished last place last year and, they only had one driver with points and this, that, and the third. They had 3 different drivers and 2 of them didn't score points. Okay, yes, last year they sucked, but this isn't last year. I put them as Buffalo Wild Wings. They're usually pretty mediocre. Sometimes it's good. Usually it's pretty consistent. You know what you're getting, but there's usually better wing places to eat, in my opinion. I know people disagree with me and they will swear and die by Buffalo Wild Wings. But let's be honest, there's better places you can go get you some wings from. That's just facts. Are they fun atmosphere? Yes. And most people go for the atmosphere, not for the food. There are much better wing places out there. Alpine is just that. They are a midfield team. Always have been. Probably always will be. They're not fighting with Ferrari. They're not fighting with Mercedes. They're not fighting with Red Bull. They're not fighting with McLaren to get, constructor titles. It's just not going to happen. Let me handle this here. Let's go. I'll deal with it later. Had a bot come in the chat. Sorry about that, guys. Back to the train of thought. They are a consistent team. In 21, they were in 5th in the constructor title. 2021. 22, they were in 4th. 2023, they were 6th. And 24, they were 6th. And 25, they were last. And then this year, they're currently 5th. So, I mean, they typically sit around that 4th, 5th, 6th place. Well, let me rephrase that. About that 5th and 6th place. They had one year where they were up into 4th, and they had one year they were in last. Like, you're not going to be there every single year. That's just part of it. It's they're pretty consistent. You know what you're going to get pretty much. That means can't get the same thing every single time. So sometimes the service might not be bad, but you don't rate a restaurant by one time. If it's consistent, then you do. But one time you let it slide. At the end of the day, they're not outperforming, their 2022 season where they're fighting for fourth place. But they aren't at the back of the pack this year either. They are definitely doing better than most expected. Well, some expected. They came out in preseason testing firing on full cylinders and looking fantastic. And so I expected a fifth, sixth place finish, honestly. And so, they're not disappointing. Now we go on to Haas. I don't know if this is a chain or if this is just an Atlanta restaurant. I'm not in Atlanta, but I'm not super far from Atlanta. So we go up there, go catch, Braves game, go catch Falcons game, go catch concert, whatever it may be. And you stop at the Varsity. The Varsity is, it's not this huge 5-star restaurant. It's not, a nice fancy sit down restaurant. It's modeled after like an old school drive-in kind of restaurant model. And you go in, they got hamburgers and hot dogs. I think they might have some chicken fingers. And you order, you go sit down, they bring it to you. The food is good. It's not going to disappoint. It's a low end. Well, let me rephrase that. It's pretty cheap food, but the food is pretty good. I've never gone to Varsity and been like, man, this food sucked. It's always been pretty good. And I feel like that's where Haas is at. They're not this huge team. They don't have this huge financial backing. They don't have the deep pockets that Ferrari and McLaren and Red Bull and Mercedes have. But they sure are taking the fight to them. They sure do look good this year. And they make you question, can they stay in the top 4? Can they work their way in the top 3? Like, I really question that. And I know a lot of people doubt Haas because in the past, they have let stuff fall off. But if they continue this trajectory, and if McLaren continues to have issues, could we see Haas in 3rd place in the Constructors' title? Would that not be insane? But is it possible right now? It sure does look like it. So, many expected to be at best Haas fighting for 5th. No one imagined them to be solidly in 4th place right now like they are. And nobody expected to have the conversation of can they weasel their way into 3rd. So, they are exceeding their expectations by far. Now, McLaren. I had to Google restaurants that have let people down because they have definitely done that this season, more so than I ever anticipated. And I didn't know what to put them as. This one was hard because of how bad they have been. So I did some Googling, and I Googled a restaurant from Atlanta called a Sugar Factory in Midtown, or Sugar Factory, and then they had in parentheses Midtown. So I'm guessing they have multiple locations, and it's just their Midtown location. Now, it's supposed to be this super nice fancy restaurant from everything that I've seen online. Again, I've never personally been there, but looking at reviews, it's not great. The reviews are talk about how long the wait is, how poor the service is, and just how over the top and expensive the food is. So, that's not a place you're like, ooh, let me go back to that. That's what McLaren is this season. There should be this big fancy team in the fight, solid in 3rd, and there's a question mark there on can Haas get to them. And really, after 2 weekends, Haas was almost ahead of them. And the reason why is because they've had so many reliability issues this season. Like, let's think about this for a second. Well, okay, Australia wasn't a reliability issue. Oscar's going out to get ready for the formation lap and just dumps the car. DNS. Then we go, oh, and then Lando's 35 seconds off of fourth place, sitting in fifth place. That don't look great. Then we go to China, and I'm gonna check something real quick because I don't remember where they were in the sprint, but we can talk about their feature race, the Grand Prix race. They both DNS. They start to line up on the grid, and both DNS because of engine issues. That don't look good. In the sprint, Lando took fourth, Oscar took sixth. Again, that's not great. And if Kimi doesn't have to serve a penalty, there's a good possibility that Lando is sitting in fifth place. So, all things considered, they were there, they were in the race, but they would have only gotten 3 and 4. They would have got 7 points for that sprint. Instead, they got 8. That's not what you expect out of a top 3 team. It's simply not. It's crappy at best on their part, and they really need to step it up. They really need to come back. I know a lot of people will say, well, Oscar had a great race in Japan. Okay, yes, he took second place in Japan. But let's also, like I mentioned earlier, look back at Japan in 25. Max had a god-awful car that nobody thought was any good. It was so bad that when he won Japan, they said, oh, if you could put him in a Haas, he would win a race in that. Now, he's in a car that is atrocious, and the best he's doing is 6th place. But that's neither here nor there, and that's a whole different topic. He took 2nd place, yes. But can he do it again? Or was it just a one-off thing? Lando finishes... let me pull that back up. I should have left that up. Lando didn't finish in top... Did he finish top 5? He might have finished top 5. And we're sitting here talking about, well, Oscar did this. Yeah, he did, but his teammate, who is in the same car as him, finished in 5th place. With a good gap between him and George. When you look at the times, Kimi finished with a 1:28.03. Oscar was 13 seconds behind that. Ferrari with Charles was 15.2 seconds behind him. George was 15.7 seconds behind that, but behind Kimi. And then Lando was 23 seconds behind him. He was nowhere near the fight with George and Charles. So, do we continue to see this trend out of Lando? And does Oscar fall into that trend? He did not have a great sprint at China. No, he did not start at Japan. But when we look at China and his sprint, he still finished... he finished 6th. And he was 6 seconds off of George, and that was after a safety car that brought the field back in on a 19-lap race. So, was Japan a fluke, or are they actually getting it together? We won't know. But it looks bad. Now, we're getting down to our last 2. And I was torn between which ones to do first with these. But I've decided we'll go with Ferrari first. And I'm not sure exactly if these are just in the Southeast. I know they've got one in Montgomery, they've got one in Atlanta, they've got a couple in Tennessee. I've seen them in some. I've seen them in Nashville. I put the Melting Pot for Ferrari. And here's the reason why. If you've never been to the Melting Pot, it's a really, really nice 5-star restaurant. But Here's the caveat. This really, really nice restaurant has really, really good food, but the way they do it is you have 3 courses. They bring you your menu, you open it up, and for your appetizer you pick a cheese, and they have different cheeses on this menu. And it's like fondue, and they bring it to you, and you get different things to sip in the cheese, like breads and stuff. And then after that, you pick what broth as you want. Like they got specific ones. Like they got, for an example, like the cheese that we usually get is like the Samuel Adams cheese. So it's got cheddar cheese and Samuel Adams in it and some other stuff in it. And then you can get the broth, and it's just different stuff. Like you can get a red wine one, and it like obviously it cooks all the alcohol out of it, but you skewer your meat, you stick it in there. They tell you how long you need to sit there and wait for it. You start a timer on your phone, and then when it goes off, you pull it out, you put it on your plate, and you eat it. And then after that, you have dessert, and you get to pick a chocolate. And then they'll bring out like strawberries and brownies and Rice Krispie treats, and you stick it in the chocolate, and you have this nice warm chocolate that's like on this little fondue thingy. And it's really good. It really is. But you're having to cook your own food also. Well, that's kind of where Ferrari's at. Ferrari had to put in some work because last year that car was absolute garbage. I'm a diehard Ferrari fan. If you've watched any of the podcast, you have seen me at some point in a Ferrari shirt. I have a Charles Leclerc shirt. My favorite driver, my favorite team. Terrible team last year. Anybody that watches F1 and watched it last season can see that for themselves. They put in the work this year, though. They came back. They came back swinging hard. They are the main team that's been able to fight with Mercedes and finally knocked off George. I know people are going to go, well, he had issues in Japan. Okay, that's part of racing still. And even, in the sprint, they were taking it to, they beat Kimi, and they weren't super far off of George. China. So, we saw at Australia in the dirty air, Charles was able to keep George. So, they're really able to fight with him for the most part. If they get around him and get clean air, that Mercedes just rocket ships away. But Ferrari's been the only one that's been really close to him at any point other than Oscar in Japan. So they're fighting for the podium every single race. They have at least one driver in the fight for the podium. And usually it's like a 3-4 situation because Lewis is right there with Charles, fighting with Charles to get that other podium spot. They are one of the most put together, closest teams so far outside of maybe Mercedes. So, they put in the work, they came out, they have great results this season. Now, Mercedes. The last one we're going to do for the night. Obviously, because they're number 11 of team so far. I don't know where these are in the country because I'm using restaurants that are near me that I've been to or have at least heard about or at least know of and are near me. So I chose Capital Grille. If you don't know what Capital Grille is, it's this really expensive, really high-end restaurant that I have only been to one time. And let me tell you, it's expensive. It's real expensive. But the food is real good. When you go there, you're not going expecting chicken nuggets. Let's put it that way. You're going to have like lobster or tuna or something. And this isn't like I went to Walmart and got instant tuna that I just pull out of a pack. No, this is like, here's a fillet of tuna. Like really nice restaurant, really expensive restaurant. And the food is really good. It's just really, really pricey. Well, Mercedes is that. They're the top team right now. They're the big dogs. They got the money. They got a really expensive car. They are still consistently, even when they've been down, they've still been consistently in the top 4. They haven't exactly they have not pulled a Red Bull and just plummeted off the constructor titles chart standing wise. haven't necessarily been fighting every season. They haven't always had a driver in that top, top 3 spot, but they haven't just looked atrocious either. This year, they have a good car. If you have watched anything that I have said, you will know that I'm very hypercritical of this car. I believe they are cheating. I believe they are running at an 18:1 compression ratio, like has been said. It's hard to prove otherwise when you just look at how much more power they have than everybody else. It's hard to convince me otherwise. It took George having such a major issue, and he was still fighting with Charles. Just throwing that out there. And again, yes, I said already once, that's racing, and that is racing. But they just, the engine is not, there's no way it's legal. But they have a big budget. They throw it at the car, and now you have a fantastic and phenomenal car. And so that's why I put them somewhere like Capital Grille. And so to rehash, what restaurants, to rehash what restaurants we paired with what teams, that way, you can comment, tell me what you think of these pairings. We have Aston Martin with McDonald's, or as McDonald's, I should say. We got Cadillac as Panera Bread. We have Red Bull as Cracker Barrel. We have Crystal for V-Carb. With Williams, we have them as Applebee's. Audi, we have as Longhorn Steakhouse. Alpine is Buffalo Wild Wings. Haas is set up as the Varsity. McLaren is the Sugar Factory. Then Ferrari is the Melting Pot, and we wrap it up with Mercedes as Capital Grille. If you don't know any of these restaurants, feel free to Google them. The reviews really do tell you about these restaurants if you don't know anything about them. And also, you can feel free to go back in the episode and see how I compared them and explained them. This is, I feel like these are pretty spot on, but let me know in the comments what you think as you watch these videos. And, I think this will be a fun discussion. Just remember, please remember, everybody, it is all for fun. Nobody get your feelings hurt. Nobody go mad at each other in the comments. That's not the point of this. With that being said, though, we're going to go ahead and wrap up for the night. Again, if you haven't yet, give us a subscribe on YouTube, give us a follow on Twitch, follow us on TikTok, Twitter, pretty much all the socials. And I'll continue to try to bring in you good content. Y'all might be seeing a new face show up here and there. And I will introduce him when he is able to get on. Wasn't able to make this week, which is no big deal. Family comes first. It is a holiday weekend. Stuff happens. I am excited to be working with him, and I think we're going to have a lot of fun, and I think it's going to make it a lot more fun with y'all for y'all to see us having a discussion instead of just me talking all the time. But with that being said, I will see y'all next week. We will come up probably with another fun content or a fun segment like this tonight, just because we won't have any racing. And I'm going to try to do more than just talk about the news, but we'll also talk news. Again, if you want to see news as it happens, follow us on TikTok. I do a lot every week on that each day. But I will catch y'all next week. Have a good week. Have a safe week, and we'll see y'all next time.